part of the conversation. Joining us this morning, we are joined in the studio by Mr. Ngande Mwanajiti, who is a human rights defender, who is also a governance expert and political analyst. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Welcome on the Breakfast Show.
Thank you, Shekinah. Shekinah is that one. And Fortrace, the queens of breakfast, as you say.
You are joining the queens of breakfast today.
I can see that. You look like queens.
Thank you. She's smitten right now.
Thank you. I can see that.
Indeed. All right, so you can also be part of the conversation in case you are watching us, that is via Dstv on Topstar, channel 92, or you are catching us live, that is on the Power Breakfast Show on 91.3. The number is 0979-192-485 or 0955-997-997. Today we are commemorating or remembering the late founding father, that is Dr. Kenneth Kaunda. Now, Mr. Mwanajiti, what is your take on the observing of KK Day?
I think one of the things I did, and I'm happy you consented, you agreed, I requested you to play One Love, the song by Bob Marley.
Yes.
And I think one of the things which Kaunda will be remembered for, he said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And it's undeniable that Kaunda led Zambia to independence. That's a fact. Okay, he became Zambia's first president. Now, he was together with other colleagues in the struggle. Okay? And the worst that Zambians can do is to, for lack of a better word, is to engage in activities that take away from what the nationalists did. And one of the things which basically make Kaunda who he is, and what he became, is his campaign for education in Zambia. Okay? You saw how he led the way to building the University of Zambia, where literally every person participated, okay, in building the University of Zambia. And then you have a situation where Dr. Kaunda is known for having led and participated in the struggle for the liberation of Southern Africa. Okay? Now, in addition to that, here at home, Kenneth Kaunda, he campaigned for the motto, One Zambia, One Nation, together with other nationalists. In other words, he wanted to see a unitary Zambia. And of the 72 tribes, so to say, there is literally none which is more important than another. And I came in here, for instance, to see these queens of breakfast. I don't know who you are and where you come from. And there is nothing on your forehead which says your name, unless you tell me your name.
Yes.
So the point being is that when people are talking about what doesn't make sense, they're just talking. Now, it's very irresponsible to express yourself in a manner which is reckless. Okay? Yes, I'm free to say what I want to say, but I can't come in here and say whatever I want to say. So we go back to Kaunda. Kaunda will be remembered, and he is fondly remembered as a person or president who held Zambia together via various initiatives such as tribal balancing, as he called it. Okay? And he is also known to have established the Anti-Corruption Commission. Now, there is something to be said about the law. The law regulates society. So before 1970-something, 72, before the year when the ACC was established, okay, clearly there was no challenge. Arising out of the challenge, having established seated, this is a special investigation team on trade and economy, it became imperative for him to set up the Anti-Corruption Commission. And the ACC was established, among others, to try to see if we could clean up Zambia. And that's very important. So, you had the president, for instance, who agreed that, look, I've lost this election. He lost the election, conceded defeat, set the pace for what Zambia has become now. It is literally impossible for any president serving us, or who have served us, to refuse to remove out of power. Because what Kaunda did was to set the benchmark of what we expect of our president. So pretty much in a nutshell, I would say that Kaunda brought us from so far, took us through the process of being a nation. I must say that one of the things which one of the administrations is guilty of is that administration, I won't mention the name, which tried to destroy whatever Kaunda did.
You can mention it, it's okay.
It's not necessary. It's not necessary. I could mention it. You know about it. I think what is important is to stick to what Kaunda did, okay, and to emphasize that taking away, however it's done and said, becomes a big minus, okay, because this is a person, this is a legacy which doesn't belong to anybody per se. It's a legacy which belongs to Zambia and Zambians. You may wish to know that upon his demise, one of the countries in the region decided to give him 3 days national mourning. But the others responded by giving him 3 weeks national mourning. So those guys reversed their position and gave him 3 weeks national mourning. Of course, we gave him 1 month. So all I'm simply saying is that Kaunda is a household name, and it's not a name which you can confine to Zambia. It's the entire Southern African region, which basically celebrated his being.
So now, within your opinion, what would you say are some of the most enduring qualities of KK's leadership, especially that today's leaders should emulate?
Absolutely. One of the things which Kaunda will not be forgotten of is principle of give and take. Remember when there was an impasse in Lancaster discussions over Zimbabwe, Kaunda was called to mediate. And he says, guys, give and take. In other words, common sense demands that you cannot have it all the way. Really, if you want to live on earth in peace, give what you know, what you can give, and let the others take what they must take. That's how it goes. And the centerpiece, I recall going to visit Kaunda when he was shot at. He was shot at. I saw the wound. So I'm not talking from without. I saw the wound. Days after, some people came and said, sir, allow us, we want to go to war. Kaunda said, not in my Zambia. I will say, not in my Zambia. You will not go to war here because I worked so hard to put this thing together. This thing, the country called Zambia. So the point I'm making is that one thing that we must do, we must make Zambia a peaceful place. We must fully embrace the rule of law in honor of KK. We must grow Zambia beyond what we ever left. We must grow as a people, as a nation. In other words, like when I came in here, I was so impressed to see your majestic building. And I'm saying to myself, this is what I think of Zambia. We must be a growing lot, not a lot which thinks higher of destroying and destruction. Those who talk of destroying and destruction have never really seen what it means to deal with a war-torn situation. I can tell you, by virtue of my work, I have traveled the world. I traveled the world, I saw some of the most nasty scenes which you cannot see. And then you say, okay, human beings, if not regulated, if not controlled by law, they can be quite nasty against each other.
Now, Mr. Mwanajiti, you, in your preamble, talking about KK Day, you did speak about the ACC, the formulation of the ACC. So, and you also said that it was made to clean out corruption. Now, seeing the world today, or seeing Zambia today, have we reached a pinnacle where we would say we have cleaned out enough corruption in the country?
I think that's an idealistic point. We may get there, but we haven't really gotten to a point where you are talking about a society which is clean of everything. What is important is to have effective laws which will respond to a particular development. Because even the most highly advanced countries, they have these issues. The difference is, for instance, if you evade tax in America, you are doing so at your own risk, irrespective of who you are. Because when the long arm of the war reaches you, you are in trouble. So I would want to see a situation where when, somebody does something wrong, and when I say whistleblower or whatever finds out, a thorough investigation is undertaken. And if the person is guilty, quick action is required. That way, then we are a functioning society. So remember the rule of law, we are going to be within the boundaries of the law. So really, I think that's what would answer your question. We need a system or a society which is a zero tolerance towards corruption. Now, we cannot have a country where you want to talk about falsehoods. Like I'm told, and I don't know which is Zambia, people say there are political prisoners here. Where? And how? It's not possible to have a political prisoner in Zambia. And let's not confuse personal views, personal experiences with the national requirements. When we talk about human rights abuses, there is a procedure that we establish that, yes, in this place there is a pattern of abuses. An incident cannot qualify to be a pattern. In other words, abuses everywhere in the world, they do exist. The challenge is, when they do, how do you respond? That's the issue. How do you respond? Because you've given yourself laws which you must follow. Now, one of the things which is not anywhere in law is the aspect of civility, acting towards one another with a civilness. In other words, I can't come in here and sit on top of your table. I must wait and follow your instructions. Okay? And let's live as a people who love each other, as a people who have a destiny, as a people who know what is good and bad for us. We can't have a situation where somebody just stands up and says, okay, I've seen this nice looking gadget, I'll go with it. That's theft. It's as simple as that. I'm stealing. And now it will be wrong for you to arrest me. You can arrest me, you can seize me, but call the police. Because I've seen a pattern where somebody goes to a radio station to go and report. Yes, you are giving them information, but you are not reporting the incident. There's a difference. The media, yes, is a fourth estate, but the media is not a policeman or a policewoman. So I hope I've answered your question, but please, if I'm not clear on anything, let's go for it.
Whistleblowers are usually unknown, and they might offer information that is very vital, especially to fight corruption. The ACC made a platform for them to come through, and also if they have information regards to something that they don't see right, they can go forward to the ACC. Now, with the cyber law in place, are whistleblowers safe?
Absolutely safe. One of the things which Zambians are guilty of, and I hope we are not, is talking about something that they have not looked at. For instance, the cyber law is in the context of what law does. Law is a response. Let me repeat myself. Law is a response to a development in a particular society. It would have been extremely unfortunate and irresponsible for the Zambian government to enact a cyber law in 1964, because then there wasn't such a problem. You may wish to know that in other jurisdictions, as far as 1966, you were not born that time, the law was very clear on sexual offenses. Okay? For instance, it was illegal to engage in homosexuality in many jurisdictions. And you may wish to know that a few weeks ago in England, the Supreme Court ruled that you cannot claim to be a man or a woman if you are not biologically so. And we'll see where that takes us. Many people have not followed events in one of the jurisdictions which agreed that if you are sent to prison, you will be kept among women if you have said you're a woman, and among men if you've said you're a man. Until an unfortunate incident happened in a particular state where a man who claimed to be a woman was kept among women, but then 3 women got pregnant. No discussion was made around that, but it was a problem. Yeah.
I think you haven't answered my question.
Okay, come through with my name.
Yes, about the whistleblowers being safe. In okay. what
Absolutely.
way?
The whistleblowers are very, very safe. Why? When we look at the cyber law and any other law, in order to activate it, to move it, there is a procedure. Mm-hmm. For instance, no part of the cyber law will be enforced against you if a procedure has not been followed. Mm-hmm. Let me give you an example. One time when I was very active in these things, somebody within the government machine decided to basically, seize our accounts, okay, bank accounts. Now the law is very clear. You cannot do that unless you have a court order. Mm-hmm. So we challenge the law, and that's what I find a problem. We must learn to litigate properly, not to be busybodies. We must learn, for instance, the question you asked. If you feel that you have this fear, reach out to the next person. Like, if let's assume you had the information, mm-hmm. and you have a concern that if you reach out, the cyber law will reach you. Mm-hmm. If you talk to a person like myself, I will be able to guide you through and say, look, that fear is unfounded. Why is it unfounded? All law, enforcers have a duty to protect their sources. Okay, the duty is enshrined in law, and as you know, sometimes some people, I don't know the details, they have turned into state witnesses, meaning that the state now has a duty to protect you more than they have done before. But in as far as the fight against corruption is concerned, I do not think that there is any aspect of the cyber laws which will work against, what do you call them? Whistleblowers. I don't think so.
So now, touching on us celebrating what we now dub as KK Day, mm-hmm. what would you say, or rather what advice would you give Zambians for them to at least ensure they do as they get to commemorate the legacy of KK?
I think one of the things that will really help is to begin to love each other. Okay, let's love each other genuinely. Let's be our neighbor's keeper. Remember, you guys are presenting the program as workers, but in reality, you are sisters. You are each other's keeper. If anything happens to her, you will respond. That's how Zambians should be. You shouldn't have a situation where, because somebody belongs to a party A, you can't have tea with them. Why? We need to go beyond that. And let's accept that these things are a recent phenomenon. Okay? And I see you guys are young. Maybe you are responsible for it. Because these are recent developments. It would not happen elsewhere. When we were growing up, a child in the neighborhood was your brother or sister or whatever it is. You are responsible for their welfare. Now you have a situation where here people just go about their business anyhow whatsoever. We need to get to a point where if I come to a power station as I have a duty to ensure that I don't just park my vehicle anyhow. See what is the arrangement. If there's somebody guiding you, you respond to the guidance. You cannot have a situation where you stop anyhow on the road. Put on your hazards. And I'm getting back to your question. We honor Kaunda, the KK's Day, by living a lifestyle that the nationalists had wanted us to do. And one of the things they left us is the motto, One Zambia, One Nation. One Zambia, One Nation essentially means that, yes, Zambia has got many nations. You have the Tonga Nation, the Bemba Nation, the Lost Nation, the Ngande Nation, all those nations, they are nations. But we are saying that we are doing away with those smaller arrangements in substitute for One Zambia, One Nation. In other words, as I said, I would be a terrible liar if I come to you and said, I know where you come from. I don't. I've seen you. I've seen you here. You're talking to me. As far as I'm concerned, the best description of you two would be the Queen Breakfasts. Because that's what you told me you are. You didn't tell me any no nothing. So we would be doing good to Kaunda's legacy if we related as Zambians who fully respect the rule of law and Zambians who are not chaotic in whatever we do. Yeah.
You can be part of the conversation. This is Voice of the People. The number is 0979-192-485 or 0955-997-997 in case you want to ask some questions. That is with our guest for today, Mr. Ngande Mwanajiti, who is a political analyst as well as governance expert. Now, Mr. Mwanajiti, how can you assess the performance of the UPND government since they took office in 2021?
I can assess them by the statements made by the president when he assumed office. He embraced the rule of law. And I remember a situation where when he said he would not have cadres in the market, there was resistance some within his ranks. Some said, give us just 2 weeks to show our prowess. Now, here I want to be very clear. We are talking about Zambia. Okay? Zambia belongs to Zambians. The president is the president for all. So you asked the question, how would I assess the UPND administration? From a delivery point of view, the UPND administration, from an economic point of view, have done very well. What did they do? They did what other administrations had failed to do. They pushed for debt restructuring. Now, debt restructuring is different from debt cancellation. And if we had time, we'd go in those details. Now, having done that, it meant that the fiscal space was broadened, meaning that there are certain things that we could do by borrowing, which you could not do. I remember somebody from the media asked me a question, but these guys have overborrowed. I said, but how can they borrow when they were not able to borrow? The rule is very clear. When you default internationally, or even locally here, if you can't pay back your loan, no other bank will lend you. So we need to draw a distinction between the political rhetoric and the reality. So, because they came back, they took over some administration which they were not part and parcel of, clearly they found bottlenecks. Now, we don't need a rocket scientist to explain that there are bottlenecks. They found bottlenecks, hence some of the debates which we have now. For instance, under normal circumstances, what is happening now in terms of discussions about certain legal changes should have happened probably earlier. But it could not have happened earlier because this country was on its knees. But some people would tell you that it was not. But I don't want to get in the political realm of things. I want to focus on issues of governance. Issues of governance are premised on, one, a strong civil society. I ask you a question. Do you have one? Which is strong and can hold government accountable. A strong private sector. I ask you, do you have one? You don't have to answer this question. A government, obviously, which is strong and orderly. I know, and that's not my matter of, I know that the Secretary of Cabinet has complained about certain corrupt activities among his officers. Now, for me, that is a good mark. Why? In the context of transparency and accountability, and what I said much earlier, when you see an issue, deal with it. Because issues in everywhere now, they do arise. The question is, what do you do? So we have a space in answering your question which makes it easier for us to pursue the rule of law vigorously. And we have a space where citizens must play their rightful role. For instance, it's highly irresponsible to just refuse something. Please give your explanation why that can't happen.
Now, people on the ground are complaining about high cost of living since the government came in power. That was after 2021, and we are also experiencing load shedding, a power deficit. So what is your take on that?
My take on that is very clear, and I thought that question would have to come. Okay? And this is where sometimes we tend to confuse issues. The cost of living, which is very, very high, unbearably high, it's got nothing to do with the UPND government and administration. I have said, and I want to say to governments, have never changed. What has changed are administrations. In this administration, I began by saying that there was a challenge with the debt. And when there's a challenge by the debt, it means the fiscal space of any government to maneuver is very limited.
Are you saying that what was occurring in the PF administration had overhauled into the UPND administration, and that is why we are currently experiencing high cost of living?
Yeah, you are agreeing with me. That's common sense. Government is always a going concern. Government is a going concern. So there is nothing like UPND government, PF government, no. There is UPND administration, PF administration, MMD administration.
So it might get worse as we go forward.
No, if the guys who are in government are doing the right thing, things must get better. Why must they get better? Very easy. If you recall and if you check your records, the Zambia's cash cow, the mines, were underground. Okay, you may want to split your head, your headache. The truth of the matter is, Zambia is a mining country, okay? And when we talk about load shedding affects the mines. But I'm sure you will know that one of the things that we cannot afford to do is to starve the mines of electricity, okay? Because then you have no income. It's as simple as that. So one of the decisions which was terribly irresponsible is to resolve conflicts with the mines in court. How do you do that? Because if you take a business issue in court, and I always give the example of Shonga Steels. Shonga Steels was a powerhouse. I'm sure you guys were very young or not born maybe, but Shonga Steels went to court. Okay? Now by the time they were coming out of court, their tax obligations were too high. One. Two, they had lost their market share because that space was taken up by other people. Now, in the case of mining, it's capital intensive. Let's accept that. Even if you say today, here where you are at power, there is gold underneath, okay, or whatever minerals. And are you sure you will be able to extract it using shovels and picks? The answer is no. So why can't we do what the Chinese did? The Chinese were very, very absolutely smart. They said, bring your investment. And some took their investment. The Indians did the same thing with Tata, Mercedes-Benz. Okay? But they worked towards understanding them. Okay? And became a force eventually. So what I'm saying to you is that if we do not become systematic and methodical in the way we do things, we risk throwing the babe with bathwater.
So now, I guess touching on the mines, right? So you have said we are a mining country to some extent, and we do definitely rely
to a very large extent.
Yes.
To a very large extent.
So now, within the case that we saw earlier this year, where we saw an embankment holding wastewater from copper mining operations, which broke, releasing more than 50 million liters of waste into the Mwambashi River, doesn't that then bring up the conversation of how we need to have much more stringent rules or measures when it comes to mines?
Absolutely correct. One of the things which we must remember were the disaster in 1970, somewhere there, in Mufrera. Again, as a result of recklessness. Same thing which happened in the case which you just cited. It was some kind of like human oversight. What we need are effective systems, methods, and laws to ensure that what we are doing is done in the best interest of Zambians. And there ought to be no compromise on that.
So now, within such a case, because this is affecting a tributary of the Kafue River, which has disrupted many people's lives along this particular tributary. So then what should the government do? What would be the best course of action to ensure that, first of all, this particular mine ensures that the people are repatriated or paid, at least alleviated from their suffering, and also for future mines or other mines in future of how they should conduct their business to ensure that Zambians don't suffer the effects of such?
I'm aware that there's been a serious effort in that direction, but that does not take away the need for ensuring that Zambians advocate, Zambians quietly lobby and agitate for reform to ensure effectiveness. Also, the issue of who was responsible cannot be wished away. If the mine was responsible, the question is, what are they doing? If they are doing something, let's welcome it. If they are not, we must respond in a manner that they don't belong here. Because the duty of care demands that you care for the environment. So if the mining entity involved did not know nothing about it, they don't belong here. They are not our friends. If they did, we may have to look at it as a human error, because there is a point to refer the mining disaster in Africa. Okay? There was a response, and that response is what we are today. So for me, again, based on the rule of law, I want a situation where I say something has happened, can we cure it? If we can cure it, let's cure it. Let's cure it. And let's move in, because when we talk about water, which flows into the Kafue, we're talking about a huge multiplier effect. Therefore, the response from the government and the mining industry must correspond to the challenges which people are going to face. Yeah.
So now, touching, I guess, another case we've seen where mining, which again is quite a big part of Zambia, we've seen, or rather the conversation that's cropped up is how government is quite lax on such, in the sense how we've seen within Kabwe where there's lead poisoning. So even up to now, people still live there and they're still getting poisoned. We've heard of cases of children being born with deformities. So now, where does the onus fall on? Who does it fall on? Government, the mining companies? What do we do?
No, on that one, it falls on government. Government is a duty towards citizens. Remember, we vote for a government. The mining companies don't vote for government. They have never. So the point is, and you answer the question which my lady here, your friend, asked. She said, how can we assess the performance of this administration? And I'm saying government is a going concern. The Kabwe incident has been going on for some time. And I'm sure there's been also reports on the Kabwe belt. And there's been reports somewhere in Mamba. Okay? And for me, I would be saying that what we need is a holistic response. And that response has to do with the fact that we need to review our laws. And herein comes the mischief. Laws are a going concern. No law anywhere in the world is cast in stone. And trust me, if we remove political considerations completely, there will be no debate. The debate comes in when you bring political considerations. Here, you raise an important question. How can we ensure that our mining, our environment is held safe? It means that the Law Development Commission must be active. We must not wait for a crisis to respond. The Law Development Commission is not an ornament. They must do their work. That's why they are a commission. And that's why you as a citizen also have a duty to raise issue with government anytime. Remember, our laws allow for citizens to formulate laws. That's the procedure.
Now, how effective has the opposition been in holding the current government accountable? You earlier on mentioned that there's no credible CSO currently that can go over and beyond in terms of holding the government bringing the government to book with checks and balances.
Let me take the opportunity to say that effective checks and balances in any society are extremely important. What you are seeing coming so much in the forefront is power politics, talking about who is controlling what. That's not the issue. The issue is, if we are going to offer checks and balances, what are checks and balances? What would pass for that is, let's assume that where we are here was a national asset. Okay, so quickly, let's be informed. What does the law say? Okay, very important. What does the law say? What is the procedure of doing anything about it? If the procedure is not followed, we must raise issue. But here comes in the ugly aspect of misinformation. I have come across a statement such as the procedure was not followed, which is a total fabrication. There is even a minister in the past who because they think they minister their power in them unto themselves, they made a decision to cancel something, but they are taken to court, and the government lost that matter. The documents are there for everyone to see. So what I'm saying to you is that we owe a duty of care to respond to every situation that we find ourselves in.
Now, there have been a lot of alliances that have been formed, talking about the Oka Alliance, talking about the Tonse Alliance, and most of the counterparts have said that the reason why they want to form alliances is they would love to overthrow the current government. Now, we do see that sometimes there's a lot of wrangles that goes in an alliance. Like currently, in the Tonse Alliance, there is some, I would say, they're fighting. And what would make it become united to maybe become a strong factor that can overthrow the current government?
Firstly, to respond to your question of wrangles, my take from a governance point of view is that governance has got nothing to do with wrangles. And anybody who is involved in wrangles cannot and should not offer themselves to lead. Why? Answer is very simple. You do not want the wrangles which are in a political party to filter into the government machinery. You don't want that. Let them clean up the mess of wrangles before they can talk about wanting to come in government. It's as simple as that. Then how do you change government? Very simple. Elections are not there solely to change government. Elections offer citizens a chance to examine how the government has fared and against certain benchmarks. So if, for instance, we're talking about an economy which is too hard, we must interrogate why are things happening that way. For instance, we may just be lucky to get a better explanation on how the Eurobond was used. I've heard of some universities built where money was spent. Where are they? Sure, I think we need to be responsible as citizens. We must begin to interrogate this and that money was dispersed. Where is it? It's as simple as that.
Do remember that you can call us up. You can send us your messages as well right now on Voice of the People. You can do so on 0955 997 997 or on 0979 192 485. We're giving you a chance to speak up, whatever your comments might be, your questions, your queries as well. We want to hear them. And well, now going on to how you said that people use elections, or how society uses elections, is to essentially benchmark the government to see what they've accomplished, what they haven't.
Right.
So now, how effective would you say this current government has been when it comes to combating corruption?
So far, so good. One measure is to see what goes through the court system. Because one of the things which many societies are guilty of is making statements which cannot be proved. So I am comfortable to look at what's gone through the court process. It is a fact that there are cases which have been ongoing. And it's a fact that ministers have been arrested. Okay? And I don't agree with anybody who says they are political prisoners, because these people, they defended their matter. And they failed to demonstrate that they had gotten that wealth legitimately. And I know that there are ongoing issues. Now, if anybody, and I'm saying this on your station, if anybody has information that points to somebody in the government, it's not to talk about it. Go to the rightful wings of government. There's the police for you, there's the ACC, report the matter with the evidence, then let's proceed. I will tell you that I speak to you very proudly, because I have moved the matter in court and there's a conclusion to that effect. So, for me, I do think that the court system does work. So, my assessment of the fight against corruption is that it's a roller coaster. It is impossible to arrest it. And anybody who thinks that they are evading it, you may evade it temporarily. I'm saying you may evade it temporarily, but eventually to catch up on you.
I'm going to take you back to the alliances that have been formed. Is there any strong alliance that can challenge the UPND currently that you would say?
As of now, I don't see any strong alliance that can offer an alternative. But in political circles and political systems, you cannot say that there will not be an alliance. There may be an alliance, but if you're talking about the existing alliances, they need to clean up their home before you can talk about them.
And now let's touch on the issue of the constitutional amendment.
Right.
Yes. So it has come with a lot of clauses that were received differently by a lot of CSOs. And a lot of them said it's not something that we need to deal with now. It's not something the Zambia of people, the people of Zambia rather need now. Right now they need to tackle the high cost of living, but we are now given the constitutional amendment. Do you think it is the right time for us to deal with that?
Firstly, one of the things which made me to go and study law is that somebody made a statement which I thought then was unfair. They say, Ngande would want to explain this to you, but because you are not a lawyer, you won't appreciate it. I moved that office feeling kind of like offended and challenged. I went to study law. So I understand where they're coming from, those who are saying time is wrong. But look at the consequences of Article 52.6. Very serious consequences. And you know that not too long ago, 2016 precisely, there was a debate on what constitutes 14 days. Do weekends form that part or not? And there was a debate on who should act. Should it be the Chief Justice or should that kind of thing? So we need the clarity on those things. We can't have those things in the laws and say, okay, time is not correct, let's do it after elections. Because nobody knows what this election will bring. And I do know that some people are saying, okay, if this happens, then there's going to be war. We don't want that here. So the correct thing and the responsible thing, having identified it, is for the government to make an amendment on that particular law.
Is it tallying with the people of Zambia?
Now, when we say the people of Zambia...
Sorry to stop you. We do have a caller. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
We're fine, thank you. How are you doing today, sir?
Rashmati is okay within the capital city. Yeah. Good morning, the guest there.
Good morning, sir.
You know, it's very important here as we commemorate the day of KK. Okay? We are commemorating, building us, teaching us a motto of one Zambia, one nation. We know we have 72 tribals. KK, when he lifts up his white handkerchief and say one Zambia and people answer one nation, he brought this motto to the other all 72 tribals to work together and to be in one umbrella. There shall be no special tribal than other tribal. We are all the one. Although they brought 7 languages, only the one, so that each 10, at least each 10 tribal can listen to one tribal. That's why they brought 7, because you can't bring all 72 tribes on the radio. So they choose major 7 languages. So we shouldn't destroy that motto. Today, politicians want to divide us. Say this is a better tribal than others. There is no better tribal than others. KK left our legacy. So we must follow this legacy. I thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. What's your take on that comment, I guess?
It's a very wise comment. Kaunda was the president of this country. He knew so much of what was happening. And I can tell you, one time he called me after I was president. He says, I agree with what you are saying. But I want to tell you one thing. I know my people, my Zambians. Okay? And now that's why I go to, but what do Zambians think about whether to change now or... So the question is very simple. When you say Zambians, remember the Constitution, says we the people of Zambia. Okay? Now, when you say Zambians, I draw a distinction between Zambians who have access to the media, okay, and Zambians who are, for instance, benefiting from CDF. CDF, whether I like it or I like it or not, it has brought some changes in certain lives. For instance, people who are out of school are now going to school. They have testified. Now, those won't agree with that.
And talking about the schools that have been built through CDF, now there's also a concern of overcrowdedness in classes because free education has been availed to a lot of people. Now there is overcrowdedness in these classes, and pupils or students end up not learning enough because there's a lot of them in class.
Yeah, actually, to piggyback of what she's saying, there was a teacher saying that, in fact, even corruption has increased, whereby the money never reaches. It goes to the headmaster or the school administrator, but it never gets to do what it's supposed to do within the school system. And now children can't learn because there's overcrowding, and it basically defeats the point of getting an education.
Did the current government plan properly when it comes to free education, or were they just emulating what was done in the UNIP days of bringing back free education?
Okay, let's go seriatim. You are saying there is overcrowding. And from a common sense point of view, I would rather have overcrowding than have an army of illiterates on the streets. Okay? I couldn't believe my eyes last time. But
they won't learn anything if it's overcrowded.
I think now you go back to what she said, and the question was there is corruption. We must be a people of purpose. There is an issue here. Remember, there is also overcrowding in prisons, right? So the question is, from a societal point of view, how do we respond to these problems? Education, prisons. You know that you and me can avoid going to prison, but we can't avoid, we can't run away from having an education. So our society needs to be cleaned and cleansed. If somebody says there is corruption as a result in the schools, it's pointless for them to talk about in their kitchens or in their, let them report to the rightful authorities, because no headmistress or headmaster is employed to engage in corrupt activities, and the government will not know that somebody is doing wrong things if you don't respond to it.
So on that, actually, during the conversation, I did say one-off report, and one of the teachers did say that they did report, and what the headmaster got was just having their salary, they were suspended, and their salary was only, a small portion of it was taken away to repay back the money that they stole, but they still went back to another school. They were moved, transferred, and most likely continued what they were doing.
Yes, you may be right in what you are saying. You may be right, and I will not take away from what you have said, but from a citizen point of view, as a citizen, you ought to be concerned when something is not making sense. Because you don't remove corruption from this angle and take it somewhere else. There ought to be a punishment for it. You cannot have double standards. The law is very clear. Irrespective of who you are, where you are, if you are involved in that activity, was the due process followed? From what you are saying, it wasn't. And that, for me, is a problem. So we go back to overcrowding. Obviously, the question is, was it planned?
That's my question.
It is possible it was planned, and it is possible it was not planned, because, trust me, every parent would want their child to have an education. Okay? So now we come back to the usage of CDF. Some constituents have done very well, but there are fewer than those who have not done well.
Can you name those constituencies?
Unfortunately, I can't. If I knew that question would come up, I would have done that. But I just looked at the graph. Some are done very well, some very badly, as less as 70%, about 70%. Now, the money for people participation is there. So somebody asked me a question as to whether MPs should be readopted. My question is, but you have a guide. The guide is the usage of CDF. So if a member of parliament, who has access, by the way, they shouldn't say we're not sitting, they do have access. Okay? But they can lie to people who don't know these things. That's an indication as to whether a member of parliament can be redeployed. Okay? Because if there is a concern of that magnitude, surely the society must respond, because the money is there. So where is the problem?
There's also a concern about CDF not being fully utilized to its full potential, like it's just sitting somewhere.
So why is it sitting somewhere? So those are issues of governance. The kind of people that you elect or the kind of people you employ, it matters a lot. Today, the Minister of Local Government was on radio saying that I want CDF to be used. If somebody is going to stand in the way of it, we'll act. That's the correct position.
So now within the position of somebody who's listening right now,
Yeah.
and they've noticed that there's something that's not making sense when it comes to the usage and the allocation of CDF, what do they do? How do they report? How do you even collect evidence? Where do you start from rather than just saying, I heard, or it doesn't seem like it's okay?
Okay, there is a way. If, for instance, you have a problem, okay, like you have a concern, surely every district is a district commissioner. Go there and report it. Every district is a police station. Go and report. They'll guide you, so that you see we run away from here, say. And it's important that if they're going to open an occurrence book, let them do so.
We do have a caller. Hello, good morning. You're through to Power FM.
Hello, Mauka Bwanji.
Tauka bwina mauka bwanji na imwe.
Mauka bwina la guest Mauka Bwanji.
Tauka.
Okay.
Nina mkeiva.
Okay, Amakeiva. You can go ahead with a contribution.
Okay, tukambeko. Kambera vamile la explain la guest kiumo. Ni la Ngandu.
Ngande Mwanajiti.
Ngande Mwanajiti.
Ngande Mwanajiti.
Yes,
okay. Awe tivela ane mucha explain. But kana nikakuze mponi nitakuti pasani advice la government la telezile ma promises yao. Umo munga batashe kuti basebenza batise bantu citizens. Vale tivitinde vale pitamu. Sizone kama ngabali explain. Usebenza kwa ba UPN kwa mapepa. Ngane nikakuze. Kama ba mfetala. Ndawo isebana tunga kuti lo cheding. Iti alo cheding maneno. Nikuze ni parvani kinga kabarana kwa. Mara itama bora 23 hours. Nenda 04. Nendi sebenza kwa tini kwa mara iti. Sebenza prime. Endi babwela bapala kuzisindise bawulesi mazambians. Imagine ngambere bali bantu nabavotera. Banachuza kuti malaika ndikashi babotera ndisebawulesi. Sebenza bani malaika kuliwa. Manzi kuliwa. Unga uyo kufika 400. Lezo tuza kiunga utakabulera mtengo. Sasa at least kama tuna usamenteni panipa kwa 120 panela mtezea. Manje wasika kwa 400 within 3 years. Wala zedenesu wamele baleta kinachotandizire. Imene wa vipoti pala ni kuza nibazona. Kama kadarize mkulibe. Na kada zinjira bolo gulaunga. Ele manje bambo tibisa 300. 280. Kulipena watu tetunga. Na kada zinjira ni wakwapula. Wakwapu it's only that opposition wamene baliko manje balidendeo. That's mbona mama makada zikulibe. Kaili ababezoneka. Tukota kwa UPND the violence. Ito lendufuza na bominya na nao. Kuza nibajeona. Yamenya mungoze desimenye wazima itavutika.
Okay.
Itavutika. Endi halo.
Ziko mumami. Ziko
kusirizisa nibauzeko. Yawo manchito mine batikamba kuti banyene sanganchito. Bamene banyene sanchito basepa kusiranga mene nchito zafira. Bamuna banga ile pano. Bali private sector inapira nchito kumende kuziso banavala kampani yao. Ni bangati bamene nchito zafira. Muzakopenda sota banyene sanganchito ile nchito. Simuza bale vikiti. Navutika otherwise kuzaona ise alliance mine bafoming our position tilinayo ready vota sivavotera mzezi watu na ndareti kuzanivazoona
zikomo. Okay, zikomo kwambiri. Okay, I'm sure you can answer.
Yes, I understood. Let me please go ahead.
Her concerns. Okay, you can go ahead and maybe answer her concerns.
Yes, I will answer her concerns.
Promises that are on paper.
Unfortunately, I can't answer in Nyanja.
Okay, yeah,
so you have to excuse me.
Okay,
yeah.
So she did say that there are certain promises that are on paper with regards to this current government, and the issue of cadreism, which hasn't ended, and also the issue of power as well as water crisis that they are currently experiencing, that is in Kabanana area. And you were once saying that the government has worked tirelessly to make sure that they come through with what they said they will. So what's your take on that?
I think you shouldn't put words in my mouth that I said once the government is working tirelessly. I didn't say that. I think what I would do in responding to this question is to move all the political questions around it. And I'll tell you why. She was not specific.
She touched on all these issues.
She was not specific to say.
Okay, let's start on one.
She was. I would deal with one generic issue. Okay,
promises on paper.
Yeah, no. That's, you can't say promises on paper. That's a political argument, and I didn't come here as a UPND. What I will touch on is what touches you and me and everybody: the issue of bloodshedding.
And milli meal prices as well.
Load shedding, I'll touch on it. Minimum price, I'll touch on those two.
Okay.
Load shedding, this is a Zambian problem. The area we wake up on that, the better. And I'm saying so having sat on the board of ERB. I can't go beyond that, but to say this is a Zambian problem. For instance, there is a big place here in Osaka, okay, which has got a certain allocation of power on paper, okay, but the demands, it is about 28 megawatts, okay, on paper, okay, but the actual reality, there's been lots of illegal connections, and as a result, in Osaka there is a system which basically responds to, it's an automatic system. When the system is overloaded, it cuts off. So power will come through when the system is stable. And this is a Zambian issue. By Chiluba as president, he was told that, look, we will need to deal with a power mix.
Why wasn't it worked on?
I don't know. This is why I say to you, government is a going concern. Government comes from 1964. Dr. Chiluba was told that if you don't deal with these issues of power, come 2023, Zambia will shut down. It's in black and white. It's there. Okay? So I do not know why certain things are not done. But it could be because of incompetence.
Has the current government dealt with it?
Yes, they're dealing with it. And you are seeing it. Unfortunately, you cannot deal with the power issue, or you just ask yourself, how long did it take to construct Kariba station? It took a long time, okay? And I will say this to you. I come from the area where the Kariba Dam sits, in Snazongwe, okay? I have a cousin who rose up to the dean of the School of Humanities. And he went to People Secondary School, which had no power for a very long time. And pylons were passing on top, going to the core belt. I know that I raised the issue at a time when pylons were taken to a certain province. Okay? And I said, but you guys, I think you are being unfair. This school here, power from 58, 60, it has been going up right through the 80s. So can you be reasonable? So the electricity energy issue is a matter which we must deal with. You have a situation, if you recall, when there were those big lights lighting the markets, it became a campaign gimmick. So fine, you vote for me, I'll bring you electricity. Okay? So now we need to say, what does Zambia need to kind of like supply power to everywhere? What do we do as Zambians if we have a situation of a drought? Okay? Yesterday somebody was making a comment to say, look, now the water is filled, so we must have electricity. It's more than that. Trust me, it's more than that. When there was a huge campaign to privatize ZESCO, I opposed it. And we went with the World Bank to tour ZESCO in Shavonga. The boss of the World Bank said, you know what? We cannot privatize this thing because we have checked from the MD up to the guy on the ground. They are all Zambians. So Zambians are doing a fantastic thing. So what we should do is to support it. So, but times change. The times change. So we have to deal with this issue as a collective, as citizens. How do we ensure that our power sector is stable? Okay,
so now to that person who is saying, but looking at Kariba, or rather, there's water now, so why is there no power? What is the more to it? Explain to us.
Right.
Because all we see is water, there should be power in our homes.
We did receive enough normal rainfall this season, so why don't we have power now? Why isn't the load shedding issue been sorted out?
I think one of the things we should do one of these days is to call the engineers from ZESCO, from ERB. So they can, I'm telling you, because it will take you 3 years minimum to have the kind of water which we have for the thing to normalize. And I'm saying to you, the challenge which we have is that we know only one thing. Even me, I'm guilty of that. When I go to my house, the first thing is I want to switch on to see if there's ZESCO. What I don't factor in is what goes into making that power. Okay? until now, until probably about towards the end of the PF administration, the energy sector was almost neglected.
I think
in
what
terms of investment.
Sorry to cut you off short. I'm sure the issue here is the mere fact that the current government promised to end load shedding at all costs. They said there won't be any load shedding in their regime.
I think you are saying the current administration.
Yes.
Yeah. Then for me, the current administration was not in office when they are making those promises. They were not. Now, there is a difference between what you think and when you do a reality check. When you are in government, it's a different ballgame altogether. And the government machinery officials will say, sir, this is our plan on ABC. So the question is the administration doing enough to ensure that this thing becomes a thing of the past?
Is it doing enough?
Those are the questions which you should ask the guys in UP and the people, what are you doing? Because it's only a fair question. If I came from the party and I feel, then you would be saying, but what kind of party are you? That would be a very good question. So the lady should raise generic questions which make sense. Okay? Now, when you go to mid-meal, trust me, if ZNS did not step in to produce maize, as they did, we would have had a crisis in the country. I am happy to indicate, to know that, at least I know that some neighboring countries were coming in to buy that mid-meal. So that should make you happy in many ways, because they weren't getting it for free. They were buying it, meaning that money came in the economy one way or the other. But what does that tell you? It tells you that we are not producing sufficient food. That must be an embarrassment for all of Zambians. I mean, we have been independent for 60 years, right? 60 years, isn't it? Now, how do you explain that we can't have enough food? And I agree with the decision by the president that, look, let's be harvesting throughout the year. That's the correct position. I don't think you can disagree with that. If you do, it's unfortunate. Because for me, the fact that there is shortage of maize, it means we're not growing enough maize. We can't be talking about 3 million metric tons harvest. No, let's be talking about 10 million. Then you're making sense.
Now, how can that be achieved? That we did see from last year's farming season that there was no rains.
Very simple, my sister. Zambia boasts of 35% of water in the Southern African region. So water is on top, as in rivers, also is underground.
Why isn't it that same water helping us with the hydroelectric power deficit that we're currently happening?
You know, unless you divert the flows of, say, Ruapula River, okay, into Kafue, there's been other politics around that. But I'm talking about developing a vibrant irrigation system. So at one, you harvest the water when it comes. Secondly, you are able not to only rely on rain-fed agriculture, you can also feed your crops from water from underground. And for that, we must invest. And I think we can invest. Then that way, you have a situation where, you know, the issues of supply and demand are arrested, they are managed. We have a situation where we can produce more compared to what we are producing. And you know very well that there are lots of people in this country who don't know the cost of mid-meal because they grow their own food. But there are others who will not grow their own food. They just don't want to. But the government must look after everybody.
This has been Voice of the People. This is a conversation that I think we could have on and on and on, as truly there's so many matters to touch on. And in case you've just tuned in, well, you've missed out on an amazing conversation, if I should say. And that's once again on Voice of the People on Power FM. And we shall be back once again tomorrow, same time, same place. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to coming to this breakfast. Me, I'll call it breakfast of beauties.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
The time is 8:57.
Voice of the People, Monday to Friday from 8:45 to 8:30 a.m. Great morning conversations start here. In your face. 91.3 FM. All over the place. 24/7.